I knew something was off the moment I pulled into my driveway that afternoon, the gravel crunching under my truck tires like it always did, but with an uneasy edge to it today. My horses, Thunder, the big bay gelding who'd been with me through thick and thin, and the others, were pacing restlessly in the corral, their ears pricked up and tails swishing like they sensed trouble before I did. The late sun was casting long shadows across the pasture, and it glinted off something that shouldn't have been there, a wide, empty stretch of dirt where my fence had stood strong just that morning. Not a single post left in the ground. They'd been yanked out root and all, stacked haphazardly like worthless scrap on my own property. And right there, jammed into the soil like some kind of twisted trophy, was a laminated notice from the HOA. The real Get Twister? I wasn't even part of their damn association. I'd lived on this 80-acre spread in rural Texas long before their gated suburbs sprouted up like an unwanted weed. But while I'd been out hauling hay and tending to errands in town, they decided my unsightly fence offended their precious community standards. So they brought in a bulldozer and erased it. No phone call, no knock on the door, just bold-faced arrogance on glossy paper. What they didn't know, though, what they hadn't bothered to dig into before digging up my land, was that buried deep under my property was something they relied on more than their bylaws, their board meetings, or their inflated sense of control. And they'd just given me every reason in the world to use it against them. Living out here on the ranch has always had its own steady rhythm, the kind that grounds a man after a lifetime of hard work. I'm in my mid-50s now, and these 80 acres have been my sanctuary since I inherited them from my old man back in the 90s. Mornings start with black coffee on the porch swing, steam rising as I watch the fog burn off the pastures. Thunder and the Mares graze lazily, their coats shining in the early light, and the air smells like fresh earth and hay. Real, honest scents that no chemical lawn spray could ever mimic. That fence. It wasn't some decorative nonsense. It was practical, built by my dad with his own hands when I was just a kid helping hold the tools. Cedar posts sunk 3 feet deep to withstand the Texas winds, rails nailed tight enough to keep the horses in and the world out. It had weathered storms, droughts, even a tornado back in '05 that tore through the county. Sure, it looked a bit rough around the edges after all those years, faded stain, a few leaning spots I'd meant to fix, but it did its job. It marked the boundary. This side mine, that side whatever the hell the suburbs wanted to be. Everything shifted when Oak Ridge Meadows moved in next door about 5 years back. One day it was open fields. The next, bulldozers and cranes throwing up those cookie-cutter McMansions with matching beige siding, fake stone accents, and lawns so uniformly green they looked like AstroTurf. The residents? Mostly folks from the city, chasing that country living dream without the dirt under their nails. Doctors, lawyers, retirees with too much time on their hands. At first, I figured we'd coexist peacefully. I'd wave at the joggers on their paved trail that hugged the property line, and they'd nod back, all polite smiles. But HOAs like Oak Ridge don't play nice with outsiders. They see boundaries as suggestions unless they're enforcing them, and they especially resent folks like me who don't pay dues or attend their potluck meetings. The first hints of trouble came subtle, like storm clouds gathering on the horizon. Last summer, those joggers started lingering longer, staring at my fence like it was a blight on their morning routine. I caught snippets of conversation carried on the wind. That old thing really clashes with the view, doesn't it? One woman in oversized sunglasses complained to her friend, loud enough that I knew it was meant for my ears. I just chuckled and went back to mucking stalls. If a wooden fence was the height of their problems, they were living in a bubble I didn't envy. But bubbles pop, and theirs was about to. Enter Margaret Thorne, the HOA president, a woman in her late 40s with perfectly highlighted blonde hair that never moved in the breeze, sharp pastel blazers that screamed, "I'm in charge," and a voice that could shatter glass from 50 yards. She was the type who'd turn a neighborhood barbecue into a bylaw seminar, treating rules like gospel and dissenters like heretics. Margaret had a reputation around town. I'd heard whispers at the feed store about her finding folks for everything from mismatched mailbox colors to leaving Christmas lights up a day too long. And she had her sights set on my fence from day one. Her opening salvo was a letter slipped into my mailbox, formatted like an official court document, complete with bold headers and fine print. Dear property owner, it began, already impersonal and condescending. Your existing fence structure creates an unappealing aesthetic contrast with the unified architectural design of Oak Ridge Meadows. Per community guidelines, all visible boundary elements must adhere to approved standards. I read it over breakfast, nearly spitting out my coffee. Approved by who? I wasn't in their community. I showed it to Thunder while I brushed him down. He snorted and stamped a hoof, which I took as solidarity. I crumpled it up and tossed it in the burn barrel. No skin off my back. But Margaret wasn't one to let things slide. A week later, another letter arrived, this one hand-delivered by a nervous-looking board member who wouldn't meet my eyes. The aforementioned fence poses a potential safety concern for residents utilizing the adjacent walking trail, it claimed. Safety? From what, a splinter? Or maybe they thought my horses might charge through and trample their yoga mats. I laughed it off again, but a knot formed in my gut. These folks weren't joking, they were escalating. Then came the personal visit. I was out fixing a loose rail one afternoon when I saw her marching across the trail toward me, clipboard in hand, sunglasses perched like a crown. Good day, she called out, her voice slicing through the air. Up close, she reeked of expensive perfume and entitlement. I'm Margaret Thorne, president of the Oak Ridge Meadows Homeowners Association. We've corresponded about your fence. I straightened up, wiping sweat from my brow. Corresponded? You mean those letters I ignored? Her lips thinned. This is a serious matter. Our community prides itself on cohesive visuals and neighborhood harmony. Your structure detracts from that. I crossed my arms. Lady, this is my land. Bought and paid for. Your harmony stops at the property line. She tapped her clipboard impatiently. Property lines are fluid in terms of visual impact. If it affects our residents' enjoyment, it becomes our concern. I told her plainly, stay off my side, and we'd have no issues. She left with that same pinched smile, but her eyes promised war. Weeks passed, and I tried to forget it. Life on the ranch doesn't pause for petty drama. Horses need feeding. Fences, ironically, need mending, and work in town kept me busy. But I'd catch glimpses. Homeowners peeking over the line, joggers whispering, even kids pointing from their backyards. One evening, as I sat on the porch with a cold beer, watching the sun dip low and paint the sky orange, I spotted fresh tire tracks gouged into my pasture, too close to the boundary. Deep ruts from something heavy, like a dozer. I knelt down, fingers in the soft dirt, still fresh. My stomach twisted. Probably a landscaping crew gone astray, I told myself, but doubt lingered like a bad aftertaste. That doubt exploded the next day. Pulling up after a long shift, the scene hit me like a freight train. The fence gone, posts uprooted, rails splintered and piled like trash. The horses were agitated, thunder whinnying from the corral as if asking what the hell happened. I stood there, boots rooted to the spot, feeling a violation deeper than property damage. This wasn't just wood, it was my dad's legacy, a barrier I'd maintained for decades. Rage bubbled up, hot and sharp, but I reined it in. Exploding wouldn't fix this. Instead, I snatched up the laminated notice. Fence does not comply with community aesthetic guidelines. Removal authorized for visual harmony. Authorized by who? Not me, not the law. I followed those tracks right to an industrial yard a mile down the road. Skid steers, dump trucks, guys in neon vests lounging around. The foreman, a burly type with a sunburned neck and aviators, looked up from his paperwork as I approached. Help you, he grunted. Yeah, I said, keeping my voice level. You tear down a fence yesterday? The one next to Oak Ridge Meadows. His eyebrows twitched. Depends. Who wants to know? The owner of the 80 acres it was on. He shifted uncomfortably, glancing at his crew who suddenly found their boots fascinating. Look, we got hired by the HOA. Said it was non-compliant. Paid us up front. Did they mention it wasn't their land? Another shrug. Didn't ask. Job's a job. There it was, the casual indifference that lets bullies thrive. You trespassed. Destroyed private property. He backed up a step. Hey, take it up with them. We just swing the hammers. I nodded, turned away calm as could be, but inside, the plan was forming. They'd hired muscle to break my boundary. I'd sever something vital to theirs. Driving home, the idea solidified. The well on my south end, a squat pump house my dad built with scrap metal and sheer will, had been quietly feeding Oak Ridge's clubhouse, pool, and irrigation for a decade. That handshake deal with the developers? Temporary, until city water came. It never did, and they never formalized it, just leached off it like it was theirs. My dad believed in neighborly trust. They'd shattered that. I parked by the pump house, the metal warm under my hand. Inside, the air hummed with pipes and valves. Dad had taught me every inch. This gives life, son, treat it right. I found the main supply valve to their line, gripped it tight. Memories flashed, the fence's destruction, Margaret's smug face, the violation. I turned it. The pipes thudded silent. Simple as that. The fallout started slow, like a drought creeping in. I went about my chores, feeding the horses, repairing a barn hinge, but across the line, chaos brewed. 2 hours later, their filters choked. By sundown, the pool's crystal blue turned hazy. From my porch, I watched the water's shimmer fade, a quiet satisfaction settling in. Their guidelines had consequences too. Morning brought stark reality. The damage looked worse in daylight. Jagged scars in the earth, splintered with scattered like battlefield debris. Thunder nudged my shoulder as I surveyed it, his warm breath a comfort. They asked for this, boy, I murmured. I needed more than anger. I needed proof. After breakfast, I drove to Oak Ridge's gates, parking just outside. Joggers slowed, eyeing me like an intruder. One woman, mid-40s with a ponytail, hesitated. Everything okay? She asked warily. Depends, I replied. Your HOA tear down my fence yesterday? Her eyes darted. I heard about a cleanup. Said it was a hazard. Hazard to what? My horses or your aesthetics? She flushed. I'm not involved. The president handles that. She jogged off fast, leaving me fuming at the blind obedience. Then I saw Margaret, arms crossed, inspecting the trail like a general. I approached. Expected you'd show, she said coolly. Good. Explain the trespass. She didn't flinch. Your fence was unsafe and ugly. We acted for the community. On my land. Visuals don't respect lines. The audacity sparked debate in my mind. Where does one person's view end and another's rights begin? I walked away calm, but resolved. Talk was futile. Action spoke. Back at the contractor yard, it was busier, forklifts whining, metal clanging. The foreman spotted me, tensed. You again? Just confirming, I said. He showed the dozer, mud caked from my soil. HOA said go. We went. No remorse. Next time, check ownership. He muttered agreement, but I saw the lesson land. Arrogance like that invites backlash. Clearing the debris, stacking broken rails, I burned the image into memory. Residents watched from afar, whispering. One man approached. All right over there. If you call destruction, all right. He admitted hearing it was unsafe. Unsafe for squirrels? He backed off, the encounter highlighting HOA echo chambers. Do residents enable tyrants? Or are they victims too? Finally, to the pump house. Dad's voice echoed. Respect the giver. They disrespected it. Valve shut. Silence fell. Waiting began. Noon brought shouts. Kids whined about the pool closing early. Adults puzzled over low pressure. That night, techs swarmed under floodlights, scratching heads. The problem wasn't theirs to find. Dawn. Voices carried frustration. The pool murked, green tint creeping. An HOA rep arrived, binder clutched. Tampering suspected. Ask Margaret, I said. He huffed off. Online, their Facebook group, accidentally public, exploded. Pool's green. Party ruined. Fix-it board. Entitlement clashed with reality. Should dues by perfection, or just basics? Day 2. Bog-like. Algae blooming, stench wafting. Joggers gagged. Nature's revenge raised questions. Is community control worth environmental disregard? Margaret stormed my drive. Sabotage. Like your bulldozer? Necessary. Then so's this. Her realization. The well. Desperation dawned. Board pled. Events canceled. Kids upset. I presented the invoice. Fence. Damage. Unpaid water. Horror. They tried tankers. Algae feasted, worsening it. Inspectors shut it down. Black test strips. Orange signs. Buzzards circled. A turtle invaded. Mutiny. Caroline ousted. Power abuse sparked fury. HOAs as mini dictatorships? Robert proposed. 20-year lease. Full pay. Fence rebuilt my way. Contract scrutinized. Agreed. Crews restored. Cedar strong. Soil healed. Valve reopened post-payment. Peace returned. Humbler HOA. Boundaries matter. Arrogance crumbles. What do you think about violence and injustice in everyday life, like when authorities overstep and trample rights? Share your stance in the comments. Have you battled similar? Let's discuss.